Why is the legacy media not holding the government to account? Why are they not holding the civil service to account? Why are they not holding the police forces to account? There's something dodgy going on. And all of it, I mean, it's very suspect to say that one of the least well-spoken men in the country has a vocal coach.
Now, Keir Starmer, Slippery Starmer as I call him, won't even come clean to us, the public, his people, about the real shape of his family. So, of course, the guy was always going to bring his dodgy secrets and lies into number 10 Downing Street. And by the way, in some ways, I wouldn't mind if he hadn't been the pious witch hunter in chief over the course of the COVID pandemic. Guido Fawkes, which by the way has been putting the MSM to shame on the story, congratulations to them. I think they put it right by saying Starmer unleashed an endless salvo on any political opponent accused of a lockdown breach, with Labour HQ and Media Machine pumping out propaganda while he gave his lectures and sermons. Yet all the time, he knew he had met his own voice coach in person under Tier 4 restrictions. So now he truly has been hoisted by his own petard. And even The Times, which was the one mainstream newspaper sort of holding out on covering this story, finally gave in today. They say Starmer faces questions. I'll say he does. Now, Starmer's glamorous actress voice coach, let's just be very clear about this, was not a key worker. She'd been doing all of her work via computer. There was absolutely no need for her to be in person with Starmer on Christmas Eve. And Labour has even admitted that today. From Guido, Labour's defence over COVID lockdown voice training session only took 24 hours to completely fall apart. Starmer's going to need more than voice training to get out of this one. So that is the political climate in which we come to today's PMQs. Kemi Badenoch has thus far been a completely useless leader of the opposition. There was a reason why I backed Robert Jenrick to get the role over her. But she had a real chance today. I even tweeted or posted on X yesterday, copying her in. I wanted her to know there was something that could make her be taken seriously today, that would drive her to the top of the MSM agenda. What she had to do was go for Keir Starmer about his secret Christmas Eve rendezvous in 2020 with the voice coach breaking lockdown rules. She had an opportunity to drive the story to the top of the news agenda. And she failed, folks. She didn't just fail, by the way, she fell completely flat on her face, making 2 throwaway jokes about the issue, not asking Starmer any questions, and allowing him, this was the unbelievable thing, allowing him, Starmer, completely on the ropes to somehow roast her. Watch.
On the other hand, she's not properly briefed on the national security implications. She's not doing her job. She's not concerned about national security, and she's not fit to be Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, how can anyone believe that this man is defending UK interests when he bends the knee to anyone who asks him? His answer was so weak and so waffly, it is no wonder he needs a voice coach.
So that was it, that little line, which is very easy for the MSM to ignore, right? And this was also easy for them to ignore.
This is a man who needed emergency voice coaching on Christmas Eve. This government is so clueless. It is borrowing £8 billion. It is so clueless. It is borrowing £8 billion for GB Energy, a vanity project that is not great, not British, and does not produce any energy.
Okay, fine. I've got huge issues with GB Energy. It's an absolutely terrible thing. But GB Energy is going to be an issue for years to come. Why today? Thank God there was actually a decent Conservative backbencher. Well done to Gagan Mahindra, who finally did ask Starmer the question.
Gagan Mahindra.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know that, like everyone in the House, the Prime Minister is an honourable member. On that basis, can you repeat his assurances that all rules were followed while the country was in Tier 4 lockdown in December 2020, not just by him, but as his team as well, but also his voice coach, Leona Mellinger.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in December 2020, I was in my office working on the expected Brexit deal. With my team, we had to analyse the deal as it came in at speed, prepare and deliver a live statement at speed on one of the most important issues for our country in recent years. That's what I was doing. What were they doing? Suitcases of booze into Downing Street, partying and fighting, vomiting up the walls, leaving the cleaners to remove red wine stains. That's the difference. I was working, they were partying.
And no, that doesn't actually excuse you, Starmer, because none of us, because of the rules that you wanted enforced, and by the way, you wanted these rules enforced harder and longer, none of us were allowed to go to work and say, hello, glamorous voice coach. Can you drive through the tears so we can spend a romantic Christmas Eve together studying my terrible robotic voice? We weren't allowed to do that, so neither were you. And you'd already cheated in Durham over Beargate. So there is a lot to pick apart in that answer and in that exchange. So let's go through it. Firstly, Kemi is finished as leader of the opposition. There was just all-round horror at that performance. Let me take you through some of it. Adam Cherry from GB News wrote, why did Kemi not do a single question on Voice Coach Gate? Tory MP text, because the strategy is let's have no strategy or relevance. Dan Hodges of the Mail on Sunday. I'm not sure how much longer Tory MPs are going to put up with this. It isn't as if Kemi Badenoch doesn't have enough ammunition to fire at Starmer, but she just can't find a way through. From Martin Daubney, Kemi misses the mark again. Starmer was there for the taking on his voice coach, in inverted commas and apostrophes, and COVID lockdown law breaches. Instead, she starts on Chagos and oil licenses, important stuff, but surely she should have gone for Starmer's throat. Pun intended. Sean Matthews of Reform UK wrote, shocking and unbelievable. She joked about it, but didn't ask a single question on the Prime Minister breaking the law. And you can just imagine the strategy sessions that went on in Kemi's team, thinking, oh, let's be clever. We'll just give a little reference to it. That's enough. That's all we have to do. No, it's not enough. It's not enough. Because right now, Nigel Farage is the unofficial leader of the opposition, and he is putting you into the ground. But it also isn't enough to get the mainstream media to take notice, which is what matters when it comes to this story. More critical, however, and I do want to look at this closely, was Starmer's answer itself, where he refused and failed to deny breaking any COVID rules. Back to Guido. Their response, Starmer refuses to say he followed all COVID rules after a direct question from Gagan Mahindra about his lockdown voice coach meeting. Starmer would not tell the Commons that all rules were followed. Oh dear. Camilla Domine of the Daily Telegraph. Again, Keir Starmer can't answer the question of whether he and his voice coach broke Tier 4 lockdown rules on Christmas Eve 2020. And look, this is not an easy one for Labour to defend, even on the soft-touch British-bashing corporation.
Does that draw a line under it, or are there more questions to answer, Mike?
Well, of course, the opposition are going to jump on this bandwagon and sling the mud.
It's a legitimate question.
But he's been really clear, and I'll answer the
It's
question.
not. Yeah.
He's been very clear that he had to make a speech, I think it's on the 20th, because of a Brexit announcement. He has a small team around him. They prepared for it the day before.
Yeah, but he also said that if he'd broken the COVID rule, he would stand down. I mean, can you imagine if it'd been the shoe was on the other?
While this was happening, the Conservatives were partying in Downing Street, so we won't take any lectures.
I listened to you, so respectfully, you know, Boris was fine. Boris had the consequences of it.
But he was found to have broken the rules.
Yeah, what I'm saying is
that
we need a proper investigation to get to the bottom of it.
One of the consequences.
But what's more is this whole story points to a fundamental weirdness about Starmer. This bloke is odd. This man is hiding something from the public. He hasn't even told us his kids' names. And again, I wanted to share some others' reaction on this because it's not just me thinking about it. George Galloway wrote, funny kind of QC who needed a voice coach, and how dedicated was that coach? Christmas Eve session during lockdown. Remarkable. Simon Danshuk, is there not something totally weird about Starmer seeing a voice coach on Christmas Eve, having a Lord buy clothes for your wife, borrowing an expensive apartment for your child's revision after the exams, and so on? Or is there something fishy going on? And Adam Brooks posted a picture that Keir Starmer had shared on Christmas Eve 2020 and simply wrote, shame that you spent yours getting oral lessons, then Rodney. And actually, sometimes it's the public who I think come up with the most brilliant posts on X, which just really sum up a situation. So let me show you this post. It's a little bit naughty, from Blame Game on X. And it shows Keir Starmer with some suitcases. And he wrote, Lady Vic, just found out about the speech coach. We haven't seen much of Lady Victoria lately, have we? I wonder why. The issue here, though, is that Starmer, and this is why Kemi really failed today, because Starmer has full protection from the racket that is the British MSM. I had to sit through, and I do this for you, I had to sit through every minute of the BBC and ITV flagship news bulletins last night. It was painful. They did not mention this story once. Let that sink in. Paul Brand used to spend every waking minute of his life thinking about Boris Johnson and his piece of cake, but not a word about this. And Kemi had a moment to change that today. She bottled it, so the silence will go on. As David Atherton wrote, leading the clarion call over Boris Johnson's cake party was The Guardian's Pippa Carrera and ITV's Paul Brand. Not a peep on Sir Keir Starmer's vocal coach. Are you journalists or lefty activists? And Peter, this is another, just a great guy, great funny guy on X, said, I can't wait to watch Beth Rigby standing in Downing Street shouting, are you going to resign, Prime Minister, at Keir Starmer? That is not going to happen. And it won't happen because we know the MSM is completely corrupt in this country. Things are changing though, folks. Kay Burley out at Sly News today, axed. There is no room anymore for propagandists like her in the media. In fact, there's not going to be any room for Sly News at all soon. And so even though the MSM might not be covering the story, I'm confident because I think now you can see that Slippery Starmer's moral authority is forever smashed. Now, today's outsider. But first, do you know that sleeping less than 6 hours per night doubles the risk of early death? Poor sleep is also linked to obesity, heart disease, high blood pressures, diabetes, depression, and a weakened immune system. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I have struggled with sleep for a while. I had tried everything, but found it very difficult to wind down and actually go to sleep before 2 a.m. at night, which I know some of you is going to think is completely insane. But I'm not alone. The CDC reports that over 35% of adults in the US sleep less than the recommended 7 hours. Many sleep supplements contain melatonin and other ingredients that create dependencies, cause morning grogginess. You know what that's like when you wake up and you're feeling really gross because of what you took to get to sleep. And they also lose their effectiveness over time. So this is why I have started to take Evening Being. There it is, a brand new product by Verso. After 3 years of perfecting the formula, they created a melatonin-free drink mix with clinically studied patented ingredients. It's formulated to calm an active mind, help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and improve deep and REM sleep, all without creating dependencies or causing morning grogginess. I actually really look forward to drinking my Evening Being each night before bed because not only does it help me fall asleep faster without having to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and wake up much easier, but because it tastes so good too. It's actually become my new nightcap, and it's good, by the way. You can absolutely drink it if you're vegan or if you are on keto. So click the link in the show description or head on over to buy.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken at checkout to save 15% on your first order. I guarantee Evening Bean will make you wake up feeling refreshed in the morning. So let me repeat the address, buy.ver.so/outspoken. Use the coupon code outspoken at checkout to save 15%. But now, back to the show. And he's back, folks. He is back. Father Calvin Robinson isn't going to get cancelled here on Outspoken. Oh, goodness, Father C, you've had a heck of a week. For people who don't know, there was a big hoo-ha over the joke that you made on stage where you were clearly just taking the mickey out of the Nazi salute from Elon Musk. And your church effectively turned its back on you. I know all that everyone's worried about is, are you okay? And are you going to be able to keep practicing your faith in the way that you want to?
Absolutely fine, thank you. I'm beyond cancellation at this point. We've been through enough cancellations, haven't we? The Conservative Party, GB News, Royal Academy of Dance, the Church of England, just add it to the list. When you are on a mission, I believe you and I are both on missions, this is to be expected. But I'm fine, thank you, and God is good. And it's good to be back on Damn What an Outspoken, the show that won't cancel anybody.
You're not going anywhere. Don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. So, Father Calvin, what do you make of this? What do you make of Starmer and the voice coach? Do you think this is weird? Are we not being told something?
It's all very weird, but you alluded to it, but many of people of the legacy media are letting go things that have shown us for a long time what's going on here. Let's remember that Sue Gray was one of the most senior members of the civil service, right? So politically or neutral or apolitical, working in the cabinet office whilst Boris Johnson was prime minister. She gets assigned to an independent review of Partygate, finds Boris Johnson guilty and Sir Keir Starmer not guilty. We all see the evidence with our own eyes. We can see he was clearly guilty. He was drinking, socializing, whilst this was not allowed under law. And so I think there were, if we look at the finer details of the report, it seems that the police said things like, we don't investigate after so many months for this particular incident and stuff like that. So they didn't actually say that he was innocent. They said they were not going to investigate and or find him guilty, which is very different. But I think it all looks a bit dodgy to me in the fact that Sue Gray was one of the most senior civil servants in the country. She led this investigation that ousted Boris Johnson, and then she's no longer apolitical. Then she becomes chief of staff to Keir Starmer, who was found innocent in her report. So she took down one prime minister, propped up another, and of course, as soon as he got in office, she remained his chief of staff for a number of months before becoming his envoy. And so we need to look into what is the relationship between the civil service and the Labour Party. Did they have a part to play in bringing down a Conservative government? And is this a coup d'etat? And if it is, why is the mainstream media looking the other way? All these details are public information. Most of them we all saw in the public rather than just the press releasing it. We saw it on social media. So we found the information out for ourselves. It's all there to be had. Why is the legacy media not holding the government to account? Why are they not holding the civil service to account? Why are they not holding the police forces to account? There's something dodgy going on. And all of it, I mean, it's very suspect to say that one of the least well-spoken men in the country has a vocal coach. I mean, I'm not the best speaker myself, but to hear Sir Keir Starmer say this is how he speaks after having a professional teach him how to speak properly is just absurd. Something dodgy is going on. I don't know who the puppet master is, but I think Sir Keir Starmer is quite clearly a puppet for something that's far bigger that we really need to find out.
Well, we know that he is a globalist. We know that he has been very open about the fact that he prefers Davos to Westminster, for example. But I'm sorry, Father Calvin, while I do completely believe that the family of public figures should have some degree of protection, it is weird if you are Prime Minister to not even tell the public the names of your children. I mean, I find all of this so completely bizarre. And at the end of the day, with this story, there was no reason for Ms. Mallinger to be in the room. Every other point of vocal coaching over that period was conducted via computer. And the fact that Starmer says he was working is not good enough because she was not a key worker. Now, I will stress again, Calvin, and look, we spoke about this a lot at the time. We both despised these rules. We both broke these rules happily, right? Yeah. And I am not for a single second trying to say that I believed in Tier 4, I believed in lockdowns or the key worker status. The whole thing was a joke. But it was a bad joke that Starmer forced on the British public to the point where some of us could not even see relatives in their dying days. Evil, actually.
I don't have a vocal coach, but at that time I was in seminary, and so I did have singing lessons. I had to have these singing lessons over Zoom. Can you imagine trying to sing over Zoom? So we had to jump through hoops at that time, and the people that were in charge of putting this legislation together that essentially oppressed all of us and said we had to stay in our own homes, they were the ones that weren't following it, and that's the worst. It's the parliamentarians and the mainstream media, people like Kay Burley, that weren't following the rules. So of course they weren't holding each other to account. They didn't care. And so, but they were putting the rules on the rest of us. It's the hypocrisy of it all that I think gets to many people. And still, there's lots to be uncovered. But when the police and the investigators of the civil service look the other way for one particular political party, but not for another, these questions have to be asked in that what's going on, who wants who in power, and why, to what end? You're quite right that Sir Keir Starmer has suggested, or explicitly said, that he prefers Davos to Westminster. That's sus. That's very sus. Any prime minister should have the intentions of his own country first and foremost. Great Britain, the United Kingdom, should come before any other country, including Davos, including the European Union. This is a fight we've been having in our country for a long time. We want independence, we want sovereignty, we want our legislators to be British first and foremost. Why is that so difficult?
Can I just ask, Father Calvin, for you to react for one moment, though, to Kemi Badenoch? Because there was one person in the country, Calvin, who could have pushed this story to number one. One person in the country who could have forced the mainstream media to cover it. And she didn't take that opportunity today. What is she thinking?
I don't know is the answer to that question. The thing is, so the leader of the opposition has a team around them, right? So people are suggesting attack lines. They've got whole folders full of things to say at PMQs. And so what's the agenda here of the Conservative Party in general? I don't think it's just Kemi Badenoch that can shoulder the blame for this. Where is the party heading? Like, what's their motivation? Why are they not fighting back? And if Sir Keir Starmer is going to give them, basically hands them the weapon, saying, here, go for it, and they're not using it, why not? That's the question we need to be asking. If there's been a coup d'etat, and the civil service has been a part of it, the Conservative government has been ousted, the Labour Party has been put in place, and still the Conservatives won't fight back. Is this a bigger globalist agenda at play?
Very good point, Father Calvin. Very, very good point. And I think we know the answer to that. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.